Good afternoon, and welcome. As we begin this treaty walk, we invite you to pause and consider where you are. We are on Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota peoples, and the homeland of the Métis. It is important to remember that we are all treaty people, as treaties are ongoing relationships that call on us to reflect how we live with one another. As you engage with this space within the Mackenzie Art Gallery, we invite you to think beyond gallery walls, as this is not just a place where art is displayed. It is a place where stories are told, perspectives are shared, and histories are revealed and challenged. The Mackenzie Art Gallery holds works that reflect diverse experiences and stories, including Indigenous voices that for far too long have been silenced. As you move through this space with us, we encourage you to think critically about what you see, what you feel, and what you may not immediately notice.
Before stepping into the gallery, the inclusion of Indigenous perspectives is prevalent as you are greeted by Joy T. Arkans, Apaspapit, Wasanamanik, Wapatom, A Nenon Toik, which is a display of colorful Plains Cree syllabics placed on the gallery's front windows. The syllabics translate to, "Looking out her window, she watches a moving mirage of dazzling light," which is exactly what the art piece captures as you walk through the entrance hall of the gallery. This art installation of Plains Cree syllabics speaks to the relationship that the Mackenzie Art Gallery holds with the land it is placed on, and is meant to show how customary knowledge can be a source for new ideas. It points to new paths forward, waiting to be gifted to future generations, to the dazzling mirages of light that it will inspire, the next evolution in how we communicate, relate, and thrive in our emerging cultural future, while honoring and building upon the lessons and knowledge of our ancestors and this land. That was a quote taken from the Mackenzie Art Gallery's feature page on the art installation, which can be found on their website.
What does it mean for you to be here on Treaty 4 land, engaging with these works? Being here on Treaty 4 land means recognizing that this space exists because of treaty relationships. Agreements that were meant to be based on mutual respect and shared responsibility to each other and the land. Engaging with these works invites us to reflect on our own place within these relationships. Whether we are settlers, newcomers, or Indigenous peoples, we are all treaty people, and that comes with responsibilities. For me, being in this space means acknowledging that my learning is ongoing. It means being willing to sit with discomfort, question what I have previously understood, and recognize the ways that colonial systems continue to shape spaces like this gallery. What responsibilities do visitors have in this space? As visitors in this space, we have a responsibility to engage with artwork thoughtfully and respectfully. This means more than simply observing these works. It means listening, questioning, and being open to perspectives that may challenge our own. When we encounter Indigenous artwork, we must recognize that these pieces are more than aesthetic objects. These pieces carry stories, histories, and lived experiences that connect to land, identity, and resilience. For example, when viewing portraits such as the image of a man wearing a headdress or regalia, we must be careful not to rely on stereotypes or assumptions.
As we continue through this treaty walk, draw your attention to all the stories being told through each piece. No two are the same, just as no two stories are. Each was created to share a specific story or perspective. What's even more beautiful is how every individual artist is able to share their truth, regardless of where they belong or come from, completely eliminating the danger of a single story. Look at each of these carvings. They are all made by different artists, and each tells a different story. The dragonfly made out of bone. What is his story? What about the stone creature with the teeth and the sun on his forehead? They meant something to those that created them. They were made with intent and purpose, telling the story of many different Indigenous peoples. Looking specifically now at Joe Jacobs' The Legend of Bald Hill, what might this story be? The Iroquois First Nation is represented, as this was the artist's native homeland. We see his people being attacked by snakes with sharp fangs. What do they represent? Maybe they are alluding to European settlers, symbolizing the grasp they took over the land and its peoples, destroying the harmony once there. Every piece of art in this curation of carvings was donated from an artist that existed long ago. It is so very important that we hear their stories. However, we should also honor the artists of today, the ones who are still living their stories. This art curation is missing modern-day carvers like those of Cape Dorset in Kingat Nunavut. Tapwewin, the telling of difficult but necessary truths. Art is a way for people to explain their stories and what has happened to them. They can represent their truth in a way that bridges the trauma into something beautiful, one that demonstrates the importance of galleries like the one we visited today. Just as the art is able to tell the story of people, it is also able to tell the story of the land. Ayetaskisau. Firmly planted, deeply rooted. No better name for this collection of pieces. The indigenous peoples believe strongly in spirit. Even non-living beings of the land, like rocks or dirt, possess a spirit, directly connecting them to Creator, making them just as alive as you or I. This spirit comes alive through each carving. These relationships are Wetaskewin, serving the land, the story, and the artist, being one altogether. Although the stone and bone are taken from the land, they are not being disrespected or disregarded. Instead, the artists are transforming them into a representation of the aliveness within their spirit. Chunks of stone are molded into birds or seals. Bone is carved back into the very animal they came from. The land is not being abused through these creations. Rather, it is being respected on a deeper level. The connection between land and human is strengthened. The materials found were not stolen, but stumbled upon, carefully selected from loose areas, not mined for mass production or personal gain. The land itself was even used to carve the pieces. Many artists would sharpen other stones or bone to create tools to carve with. Serving the artist, the material is able to help them tell their story. But this relationship goes deeper than artist material. It stems into being and being, allowing the land to have a voice too. These carvings in particular represent that sacredness, showing that the land must be taken care of, not fought over and destroyed. These carvings help remind us of our promise to the land.
Our responsibility is to approach these works with respect and humility, avoiding assumptions and acknowledging that we may not fully understand their meaning without deeper learning.
The artwork in this exhibit highlights Indigenous knowledge systems. These knowledge systems include storytelling, Indigenous relationships, and ways of knowing passed down through generations of elders. Indigenous knowledge is known to be shared in various forms such as art, stories, and oral traditions that communicate teachings about community, identity, and the land. The Indigenous artists use their art to share Indigenous history and cultural teachings. Knowing that the exhibit does highlight the Indigenous voices, it is vital to take a moment to evaluate how museums and galleries can shape the way knowledge is presented.
In order for colonial structures to display pieces of culture, it must come from a place of respect and appreciation and avoid the colonial stance of ownership. Historically, many colonial structures have displayed artifacts of culture in unethical ways, such as monetizing the art for the structure's benefit, appropriating the culture, and displaying items curated through theft. A way to combat this is the inclusion of the cultural voices and perspectives in positions that are capable of action and decision.
Exhibits like Death Boat and Other Stories help challenge those common practices by centering Indigenous artists and their stories. As the viewers of this exhibit, we are invited to consider the voices that are prioritized and how we can respectfully learn from the knowledge shared by Indigenous artists in this space.
The Mackenzie Art Gallery previously committed to the reconciliation of their colonial foundations by broadening the representation of Indigenous artists and artworks within the gallery.
We invite you to take a moment to reflect on these questions. How did these works come to be here? Whose knowledge is being shared? And under what conditions?
Connecting to what we have discussed here in education, school is where we need to reach the most. The youth is where we can change for the better in how we, as a society, view ourselves within treaty. The Grade 12 Treaty Outcomes and Indicators, TR 12.1, HC 12.3, and TPP 12.4 outline what we have discussed in the gallery itself and what we wanted to aim at with this project. As occupants of the land, we must put in the initiative to understand who we are in relation to Treaty 4, not just from the perspective of the past, but now. Treaty is something that is ongoing and changing, not stagnant.
Keep in mind what giving back looks like. Representation is not enough. Giving back can involve building relationships with communities, supporting Indigenous leadership in decision-making, and ensuring that Indigenous voices are not only included, but centered. Being here on Treaty 4 land means recognizing that this space exists because of treaty relationships. Agreements that were meant to be based on mutual respect and shared responsibility to each other and the land. How might you carry what you learn here into your relationships beyond this gallery? What we learn in this space should not remain here. It should shape how we move through the world going forward, as well as shaping how we relate to others. Many works in this gallery also challenge us directly. For example, the piece that includes the phrase, "Hang around the fort, Indians," confronts us with the realities of colonial violence and degradation. Works such as these push us to reflect on how these histories are not just in the past, but continue to shape present-day life. For some, carrying this knowledge forward might mean continuing to seek out Indigenous perspectives and voices, challenging stereotypes or misinformation when we encounter them, reflecting on our own roles and responsibilities as treaty people, building respectful and reciprocal relationships in our communities. It also means recognizing that reconciliation is not a one-time thing. It is an ongoing process that requires commitment, reflection, and action. As you leave this space, we invite you to consider, what is one way you can honor what you have learned within your daily life?